Hi, everyone. Welcome back to She Blurbs Podcast. Today's guest is Paul Forchione. Did I pronounce it right?
You did.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? Oh, and welcome to my podcast.
I'm glad to be here, Brook. Thank you so much. I was looking all day to do this.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born with something called cerebral palsy. And if your viewers don't know what cerebral palsy is, it's lack of oxygen to the brain at labor. And as a result of this lack of oxygen to the brain in labor, it can leave one side of the body paralyzed. It can affect your speech. And this is all permanent. This does not go away. So when I was born, I wasn't moving the right side of my body very much. And naturally, my mom was very concerned about this. So she took me to the doctors to do some testing to see what was wrong with me. And after the test came back, it came back that I did, in fact, have cerebral palsy. And the doctors at the time thought that it was so severe that they thought I would never, ever be able to walk. And when I got to a certain age, it would be a good idea to get me into a wheelchair because that was going to be my life going forward.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank goodness for a great mom. That wasn't my story. She got a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion, found a physician that was willing to help. And that's when my journey began of physical therapy 5 to 6 times a week. And with this physician's help, I was able to walk at age 3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't really remember that, but obviously that's a huge feat that I was able to walk at age 3. But I do remember being put into soccer roughly around 5 or 6 years old. And at the time, I could probably run about 25 to 50 yards max where I would have to stop. And obviously the other kids could run laps around the soccer field. They could play soccer. And I felt so defeated because I was so limited on my physical abilities. I remember going to my mom and going, "This is ridiculous, Mom. I don't want to play soccer anymore. I'm basically standing there where these other kids are playing soccer around me." And I remember what my mom told me because it's been my mantra my whole life. She told me this. She goes, "Paul, if you don't want to play soccer anymore, that is fine. But we need to honor our commitments. So you need to finish out the soccer season. And after that, if you do not want to play soccer anymore, you do not have to play soccer anymore." And that's basically what has happened. I'm 40 years old and I haven't played soccer since in my life.
That's cool. That's cool. What is it like living with cerebral palsy?
Well, at the time as a kid, it was pretty hard for me. As you could tell, I could only run 25 to 50 yards. Mm-hmm. So, I stood out. But I got a big break when I was, I think it was 7 years old. I had surgery on my right foot. It tightened up the tendon and gave me a little bit more spring in my step. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how much of a game changer this was going to be, but it was huge, huge. So I switched schools around this time. And I will never forget my first day of PE, my first day of physical education. We did our stretches and the teacher said, "Okay, now run a lap." And I'm thinking to myself, here we go again. I'm going to run 25 to 50 yards and I'm going to have to stop. And these other kids are going to see that and they're going to start teasing me because of it. But because of my surgery, it was different. I remember going past that point where I normally have to stop, but I was keeping up with the other kids. And I remember saying to myself, "Come on, Paul, you got this, bud. Keep going, keep going, keep going." And I finished the lap with the other kids. On the outside, I kept it cool, but on the inside, it's like, yes, yes, yes. The first time in my life where I just fit in, where I didn't stand out. It was just an amazing feeling. And things did get easier for me, but I would not consider them easy because I switched schools again in middle school. So I was about 12 years old. And as you know, Brooke, that's a tough age. These kids have been going to school with each other for years and years. They already have their cliques. So just being a new kid alone is going to be a tough feat. Well, I was a new kid, but I walk with a limp and I hold my right arm differently. So I'm going to stand out even more, not just being a new kid, but because of those things. So I was bullied and teased pretty much every single day. It was very, very tough. And then on top of that, my mom raised me Catholic. So she wanted me to go to a Catholic high school. So I had to take an assessment test to see where they're going to place me academically. And well, I must have bombed the test because when I met with the principal and my mom, the principal tells me that they're going to put me at the lowest level possible. And they don't expect much from me because I don't seem like I'm going to be college material. So I have to go back to junior. Yeah, I have to go back to my other school that I was at feeling defeated. Now, not only do I not fit in socially, I don't fit in academically because this principal thinks I'm stupid. So I am just crying myself to sleep, telling myself, why me? Why do I have to be different? Why can't I just fit in? Why can't I just be one of the other kids? And I don't know what came over me, but midway through my 8th grade, I was just tired and sick of being angry and sad all the time. Those were my go-to emotions just because of the environment I was in. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the type of person I am. Anger and sadness are not my go-to emotions, but it was at the time. And I wanted to change that up. And I thought to myself, what could I do to change that? So I thought, what if I set a goal for myself and focused in on that goal and kind of ignored the noise? So what was that? I'm sorry?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. All right. So I set a goal for myself to make my varsity baseball team in high school.
Oh.
So I started playing fall ball, winter ball, spring ball. And if I wasn't doing that, I was throwing tennis ball against the wall. And the great thing about this, Brooke, I know this now. I didn't know this at the time, but I started sending a different energy out to the kids. Instead of having my head down, shoulders forward, I had my head up, my shoulders back. I had more confidence in myself. And as a result of this new energy shift, they started sending me a different energy back towards me. Instead of bullying and teasing me, they started rooting for me. So my middle school to my high school career was much, much different, all because of my energy shift. And that was a win just with that. Not even the goal itself, but just this energy shift. But I'm happy to tell you, with the support I had with my teammates and the coachings, that I was able to make my varsity baseball team as a junior and a senior. And I remember graduating high school, feeling very accomplished about that goal of making my baseball team, because at the time when I made it, I thought it was going to be near impossible. Somebody with cerebral palsy making a varsity high school baseball team, give me a break. It wasn't going to happen, but I was able to do it. So I really started to think about what that principal said to me years earlier about not being college material. Because throughout my high school career, I pretty much mailed it in. I just did enough to stay eligible to play baseball, because in the back of my mind, I was like, why bother? I'm not college material. Why waste my time? Just do enough to get by and play baseball. So that's what I did. So my grades weren't that great. But really thinking about that goal that I set and accomplishing it, I thought to myself, why don't I set another goal for myself to be college material? So I enrolled into a junior college because that was the only place that was going to accept me at the time. Got myself a math tutor. I got myself a regular tutor. I went to the math lab pretty much 5 days a week. I did everything necessary to increase my grade point average. And with all the hard work I put in, I was able to transfer to a 4-year university where I was able to graduate college. And I so wanted to go back to that principal. See, you're wrong. I was college material. But in the end, I should thank her, because her dialogue was playing in my head the whole time in college, saying I wasn't college material, and all I wanted to do was prove her wrong. So if she didn't say that to me, I don't know if I would have hit the books as hard as I did and graduated. So now I graduated college. I have no life experience whatsoever. I have no idea what the heck I want to do with my life. And I had a family friend who was in the mortgage industry. He was the CEO of a bank, and he said, why don't you become a mortgage loan officer? I'll hire you. And I said, why not? I'm not doing anything else. Let's go. Let's give it a go. So he hires me. And I get in, and nobody wants to talk to me. I'm sitting alone at lunch. Everybody's shunning me. I felt like I was back in middle school again. And I quickly realized what the issue was. They knew I knew the CEO. So it wasn't because of my talents. It was because of the name I had. So what they were gonna do is they were gonna chew me up and spit me out because I didn't belong there, because I didn't have any talents. I just knew the person. So I decided that I was gonna dig in, and I was gonna work hard, and I was gonna prove myself that I belonged here. So I had a great attitude. I never complained about the workload, and from afar, because they didn't want to talk to me, I was observing what the top loan officers did on a daily basis. And I'll never forget my first day of wanting to go out in the field and get loans for the first time. My family friend, the CEO, stops me and goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "Well, I'm going to go out in the field. And I'm going to get loans." He has a concerned look on his face, like, no. You are not ready to go out and get loans. We need to get some more training, and then we'll get you out there. And I'm like, no. I got this. I'm ready. He's like, okay. So I go out there and I fall on my face. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. He was right. I needed way more training. And the clients were beating me up. I didn't have no idea what I was doing. But slowly but surely, inch by inch, I started to realize value I could add to these clients. And once I started doing that, I started to get loans, more loans, more loans, more loans, and more loans. And 2 years later, I became a top producer in this company. And the people who didn't want to talk to me when I first got there are now coming to me with questions on how I was able to get so many loans in such a short period of time.
Wow.
And I really, really, really enjoyed being in the industry for a long time. But then 2008, 2009 hit, and the economy just tanked.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd have a job in the industry, and then the whole company would go belly up. And then I have to get another job in the industry, and then the whole company would go belly up. And I had this happen to me 3 or 4 times. So I was starting to really lose the luster of the industry. And I remember one of the last places I was at, they brought in this motivational speaker to motivate us so that we bring in more loans. And the guy blew me away. The guy was tremendous. And I made a point to talk to him after to tell him how great of a job he did. And he told me he started as a life coach. I'm like, life coach? What in the heck is that? And he explained to me what that was. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's what I want to do. Yeah. So in between working in the mortgage industry, I was getting my coaching certificate. And I was telling people that I wanted to be a coach. And people were kind of humoring me. Okay, coach, go out and get loans, bud. Whatever. Life coach, whatever. And then things started to get serious because I started getting my website up and everything, and I was going to do it on the side. And the legal team at the time got wind of what I was going to do, and I explained what I was going to do. And they're like, this could be a conflict of interest. Let me do some investigation, and I'll get back to you. I'm thinking, oh, that does not sound good. Yeah. And they came back to me with a 5-page report on what I couldn't say as a coach. And I'm looking at this going, there's no way I'm going to make any traction as a coach if I follow this to the T. So I'm going to have to make some hard decisions. So I spent a year paying down all my debts, making necessary changes in my financial strategy, and doing various different things. And then next year, I quit in the mortgage industry, and people were like, "What in the heck are you doing? You just made President's Club. You're a great loan officer. What is this pie in the sky life coach nonsense that you're talking about? You're a loan officer. Just to be a loan officer and quit with this coaching nonsense." And I'm like, no, I want to give it a go. And I'm like, okay, well, you'll be back. And for a while, I really thought they were right because I was not getting any traction as a coach. Wow. And the reason why I wasn't getting any traction as a coach, I started to realize that how do I expect people to be vulnerable with me if I'm not vulnerable with them? Mm-hmm. Meaning the story that I told you, Brooke, about having cerebral palsy, I wanted to bury that story. I didn't want to tell anybody that story. And the reason why I didn't want to tell anybody that story is all through growing up, all I wanted to do was fit in. I didn't want any special treatment. I just want to be treated like anybody else. So anytime I would even bring up cerebral palsy, I'd almost be in tears talking about it. But I thought the only way I'm going to be able to make a difference in coaching is if I tell my story so people know where I'm coming from. I need to be vulnerable so people feel comfortable being vulnerable with me. And I started to talk about my story, tell people that story. And I will never forget my first client. The first client comes up to me and goes, "Paul, I don't have cerebral palsy, but I have this. And I feel like you relate to me. So I want to work with you because I feel like you're going to help me." And then it just started building from there and building. And here I am today talking with you.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank
so
you.
How long have you been a coach again?
5 years.
5 years. What do you love the most about being a coach?
Being able to show people the gifts that they have. So often we have these limited beliefs about ourselves, and we tell ourselves these negative stories that aren't true about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And being able to help people break that and see the true potential that people have. Mm-hmm. And you'll be so surprised how much potential a person has if they just have belief in themselves. When they have belief in themselves, the sky is the limit. They can do whatever they want to do, but they got to start giving themselves that negative thinking. We say to ourselves things that we would never say to our worst enemies, but we say to ourselves on a daily basis, and that's not okay. We need to change our thinking patterns. And when we do that, boy, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, because when I first started my podcast last year, my mom was like, "Oh, well, it's just a hobby. You'll get over that, and you won't make any money." And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I ended up making money, and I ended up getting over 100 interviews. And my mom was like, "Wow," and she's like, "Why don't you interview positive people? Why do you have to interview people with issues?" I'm like, everybody in this world has issues. Everybody. There's nobody in this world that's perfect. And she's like, well, can they have positive messages? I'm like, they all have positive messages. What are you talking about? I'm like, have you even listened to my podcast? So yeah, it like people putting negative thoughts in your head, it can affect you. Because I almost gave up when my mom kept, saying, no, don't do it. So I agree.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't. But even what your mom's saying, in your mind, you say worse things to yourself than what your mom said. And it's up to us to break that pattern, to tell ourselves that those are just thoughts. They are not reality. And to be aware of when we start to go that negative rabbit hole, to stop ourselves and say, no, that's false. That is not me. And that's a daily practice.
Yeah, that's what my therapist keeps telling me. She's like, maybe you need to distance yourself from your mom a little bit. Just limit your conversations with her. I mean, don't completely give up on her, but just limit them and just say, okay, mom, and let her go. So she won't have those negative thoughts coming in your head, And I'm like, okay. So what is your biggest challenge you help one of your clients through?
Say that. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
What was your biggest challenge you helped one of your clients through?
I mean, everybody comes to me with different things, whether it be, job goals, personal goals, all kinds of stuff. But when we break it all down, it all comes back to our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves. And that's where I stay. That's where I build my foundation with my clients, is building that self-esteem up, because that is huge. Without good self-esteem, you're not going to be able to do well at work, build relationships with your family and your friends, and overall, you're not going to feel good about yourself. So we got to start with ourselves. And once we start to build that foundation, they'll find that the goal that they set is much, much easier, because they break in that limited belief. So when a challenge comes up in front of them, they're not giving up, because they're like, I got this. This is just a wall. I'll find a way. I'll get a rope and I'll climb over it. I'll get a ladder. Whatever I need to do, I'm going to get over it, because I got the tools to get through it. And then even if they fail at a goal, we need to look at it as a learning tool, right? I learned, wow, this journey I went on didn't necessarily go the way I wanted to, but look at what all I accomplished, and look at where I'm at today. And because of the goal that I set for myself that I didn't accomplish, now I know I want to go after this. So we need to really look at failure as a learning tool, and not as some grandiose, horrible thing that we put in our minds, because the fear of regret should be way worse than the fear of failure, because I can live with failure. I can't live with, I should have traveled here. I should have started this business. I should have done that. I don't want to live in that world, because when I talk to people in their 80s and 90s, that's the thing they tell me the most is, I had this opportunity to invest in this company, and this company blew up, and I didn't do it. I killed myself that I didn't do it. Or I had an opportunity to marry this person, and I didn't do it, and I mad that I never got to do it, because my life would have been much different. It's all about regrets. They don't talk about their failures. They talk about what they didn't do.
Yeah, that's true. I never realized I do that.
Yeah.
True. I want to thank you so much, Paul, for coming on my show today and speaking about cerebral palsy.
No problem. And then if anybody wants to, talk with me or what have you, I have a Facebook group called Rewrite Your Story that, Brooke, you just joined today. So thank you very much.
Yes.
And it's a space where people can share their stories with no judgment, only support. And we have meetup groups monthly where we all come together and we just share our support for one each other and build each other up. So it's a great community. So if you want to be involved, rewrite your story, we'd love to have you.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much.
No
Bye.
problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my podcast, Interview with Paul. If you would like to join his group, I will send you an invitation and you can join the group, or you can contact him personally. If you would like to view his coaching or anything about him, you can go to his website. It's linked below. It's tinkering below. I want to thank you all so much for your support, and I just want you to know that I appreciate it so, so much. And if you ever need any help, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to any of the people that I have interviewed, because they are there to help. They will help you. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.